Mr. Delholm?
Yes, yes. Or just Rodney's fine. There we go. Well, thank you for helping me get this all set up, Elena. And thank you all for attending today. As Elena was saying, my name is Rodney, and I am a certified credit counselor with Consumer Credit Counseling Service in Salina. And I need to update our cover slide here because we've been here since 1985. So we've been here over 30 years. I'm lucky the agency still lets me come in the office. I've been here almost 25 years. And so it's been I enjoy what I do. I used to be a lender. Matter of fact, I used to work for UMB Bank there in Kansas City for a while. And then I had the opportunity to get into the credit counseling and education. And so here I am. And so always happy to talk to people about finances and credit. And I always refer to it as a game. There's no like real rule book that you can just pull up somewhere and say, here's what you need to do. And I always feel like it's got its own lingo. And so I enjoy visiting with people about how to play the game, how credit is looked at, how to work with credit. And so that's what we'll be looking at today is about credit reports. And I'm very informal. So if you have any questions, please ask. I'll try to keep a watch out for the chat room, and I bet Elena will too. Please type in questions if you'd like, and we'll get those answered. So you don't have to wait till the end to ask questions. I was just telling Elena at the very beginning, I tend to forget things. So if I don't ask it right away, I probably aren't going to ask it at the end. So ask away, be happy to. So just a little bit about who we are. We are a not-for-profit agency. We focus on Kansas. And so we offer free budget counseling. So we help people look at their finances. We do free credit counseling. So we can help you look at your credit report or show you how to pull that yourself. And if you look at it and you're thinking, oh my gosh, what is this thing trying to tell me? We can help you decipher the credit report because it can get pretty technical. And I hope it's okay, Elena. I like to ask people questions.
Sure.
So I'm going to put everyone to work here. How many of you have seen a copy of your credit report, let's say within the last 6 months? Anyone? Oh, I see a thumbs up. Okay. Yeah. Well, if you haven't, oh, several of you have. That's fantastic. You know, I'll do a program and there's cases where no one will raise their hand. And so if you haven't seen it, don't feel bad. We're going to talk about how you can get that report for free. So, and you can get your report and you get your score weekly. Okay, great. There are services that do the scoring, and we'll talk about some of those today too. Be glad to. Just a couple more things about the agency. We do debt management plans also. That's for anyone who feels like, hey, there's so many people with their hands out saying, pay us money. I just can't keep track of everybody. So we do help people set up payment plans with debts and of course, education. So we'll move on here. And how do we get the copy of that credit report? So it's federal law. We all can get a free copy every year. And the government set up 3 ways to request that credit report. Now, the 3 credit reporting agencies are Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. So when you apply for a mortgage, a car loan, a credit card, these are the places the lender is going to check how are you handling your credit. And you can either call a phone number and I've actually done this, so I can vouch for this. You can call this number and they will mail the report to you for free from these credit bureaus. Now, I'm sorry, you can hit any number you want to when you call that number. You will not get a live person on the phone. It is all automated. And so it'll prompt you what to say, like your name, your address, birthday, social security number. It'll ask you which credit reports you would like. The law says you don't have to get all three at the same time. So if you want to space this out, you can do that. Maybe you get Experian today. You wait 3 months, next quarter you get Equifax, another quarter later you get TransUnion, and by the next time a year goes by, you can start getting your free Experian report again. It's been a year at that point. So if you're just monitoring your report, that's a way to do that. They also have a website, and this is the only website the government has set up for this purpose, annualcreditreport.com. And I promise you, and if you were in my office and you're like, Rodney, could you help me pull a credit report? This is the website I'm going to take you to. If you go to a website and they say it's free, and all of a sudden they're asking for your debit card or credit card number, get out of there. It's not this site. Now, there are other sites like Credit Karma, Credit Sesame, freecreditreport.com. Some of these other sites, you can access your credit report, but you're only going to get bits and pieces of it. You don't normally get the whole credit report itself. So this is a way for you to get that directly from the source. And again, you get the whole report with all the details. Matter of fact, I'm going to put my lender's hat back on. If you were back in the day borrowing money from me, I would pull a credit report, of course, but that is fashioned for the bank's purposes. So it's abbreviated, a lot of initials. And if you look at it, you're wondering, what on earth is this thing trying to tell me? The reports that you get through this website is much more detailed. It's spelled out. It's supposed to be easier to read. So if you've not received a copy of your full credit report, this is where I would suggest you go to. It's to me the best source. You can also go to the website. There is a form now they also have that you can fill out and mail in. Again, it's free. You pick which credit reports you want. You can pick all three. If you've never seen your reports before, you might go ahead and get all three, just so you know what's in that report. And if you have it mail them to you, probably figure 4 to 6 weeks. You're not going to get it the next day. It's going to take a little time to get to you. So it's a good thing to know. But here's the kicker. The law did not provide that you get your credit score. And we're going to talk about scores, but when you get this, you're just going to get the report itself, which is what you need to know, because your score is based on what's in that report. So you like to know what each item says for you. So let me ask you another question. What do you think? If you owe money, is that creditor required to report that to these credit bureaus? What do you think?
Yes, they do.
They do. I'm afraid the answer is no.
No.
No. So there are some creditors that choose not to report at all to the credit bureaus. And if they do choose to report, there's no regulation that says they have to report it to all three credit bureaus. So you could actually pull Experian, look at what's being reported there, and then pull up TransUnion same day. And you may find that there's things not in that report, or vice versa. You may find out there's something in TransUnion that's not in Experian. So that catches people off guard, because that means your credit score at each credit bureau is probably different, because your credit score is based on the information in that particular report. So if the reports are different, the scores are going to be different too. So that's a lot of the reason why you see difference in scores between each credit bureau. Okay, any comments or questions on getting that copy of the credit report?
I have a question about credit scores. So all three bureaus have different scores, and looks like Experian is always the one that has the lowest score. And the majority of lenders go with the lowest score, which is Experian. So do they accept not full report? Because if the score is low, that means that that bureau doesn't have all the reported accounts. That would mess it up.
Well, it may not help, right? And that sometimes it boils down to what the policy is for that particular lender. So if all they're doing is pulling the Experian credit report, they may choose not to pull the others, and that might be what they will make their decision on. Some creditors will pull all three and they'll use the middle score. They won't take the high one, they won't take the low one, they'll look at the middle score. But again, there's no federal policy that says this is the way that you have to do it. That's up to each lender, how they choose what their policies are regarding those scores. So, so it might be interesting for you to pull up the other credit reports and see what's missing. What's the difference between TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian? Yeah, so good question.
Thank you.
Good question. Okay. So what are you going to find in this credit report? There's a lot of misinformation out there of what are they actually reporting. This has not changed. And as again, I've been in the credit world for, if you include the lending part, probably 30, 35 years. This has not changed at all. So the things you're going to see is your personal information. So that's your name, your address. Sometimes because of confidentiality, you probably won't see your full social security number, maybe the last 4 digits. Sometimes I'll have your phone number on there. And this surprises people. Your credit report will keep back at least 5 years of residential information. So every time you apply for a credit card, a bank loan, a mortgage, or your current creditors request to see an up-to-date copy of your credit report, they're sending in your address that they have on record. That's how all that gets updated on the credit bureaus. So I've had people, I pull the report and maybe they've moved around several times in the last couple of years and they're surprised that that's all kept on record there. So that's something to look at to make sure the addresses they have on there, the phone numbers you find are actually your information. Public record information, that's anything you or I could go down to the courthouse and request to look at. So if you look at the Sunday paper, sometimes you'll see, oh, Discover Card sued Rodney for a debt payment or a debt, or someone's house was foreclosed on. And you're wondering, well, how did that get into the newspaper? It's because it's part of the public record. You and I have access to that. We can ask for that kind of information. That is on the credit report also. If I file bankruptcy, that's part of public record. You'll find it there. Account history, that is just if you have a bank, not bank account, a credit card, let's say with UMB Bank. I'm going to pick on them, my former employer. They report to all 3 credit bureaus. That would be part of your history. They would report monthly how you're making your payments and what your balance is and how long you had the account. And then the 4th section is inquiries. So this is anyone that you've had have given permission to pull your credit reports. And the credit bureau will keep a 2-year history of this. So they do keep track of that. And when you apply for new credit, creditors look at that. How often are you applying for credit? Now we'll be talking about this with the credit scores, but the rule of thumb is you should not let more than 4 or 5 people a year pull your credit report.
We have a couple of questions.
Oh, sure.
They're in the chat box. Do you feel like credit ratings provided by credit card accounts and places like Credit Karma are accurate? Do you think they're accurate?
You know, Credit Karma, Credit Sesame, companies like that, I refer to them as a good resource, a good tool to go by, but the credit scores that they have put together themselves is not probably going to match the credit score that banks are actually using. The banks use a FICO score. The company that developed that is called Fair Isaac Company, and so that's where FICO comes from. So Credit Karma, Credit Sesame, they put their own equation together basically. So they're giving you an idea of what your score is, but it may not necessarily be your true score. We're hoping it's close. It's a tool.
And there is another question. So if something in one of those reports is different, can you have it included in the other 2 reports? I'm talking positive info.
Oh, good. Yeah, well, you could call your creditor and ask, could they report it to the other credit bureaus? It's up to them. Creditors do pay a fee to have that reported. So it may be they just, because of costs, don't do that. Could be a policy, but yes, you could ask your creditor to report that. Most credit cards report to all 3 companies. It's when you start getting with like local lenders, is that they may not report at all, or they may not report to all 3. So it would be a good question. The worst they could do is say no. So, but at least you've asked and you know.
Thank you.
You bet. You bet. We were just talking about this in the office today, and this is not in the slides, but it does come up. There are companies out there that says, hey, if you pay them a fee, they'll report your rent, utilities, things like that to the 3 credit bureaus. I would just tell folks, be careful and find out, are they actually reporting it? How are they gathering the information? And then definitely pull your credit report if you do that and see, is it actually showing up there? Is it helping? I just saw a statistic yesterday. There's 25 million Americans that they consider credit invisible. And that means they have nothing in the credit report. And so there are companies out there that says, hey, we're going to help you with that. Just be very careful, because usually you're going to pay a fee for that service, and you want to make sure they're doing what they're saying they're doing. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I thought I'd give you, in case you've not seen a copy of your credit report, I have a couple of slides to kind of give you an idea what this might look like. Every credit bureau has its own format, so please don't feel like this is going to be the same between all 3 companies. But just to show you, this is a sample credit report that Equifax had available for folks to look at. So you can see the top section is your personal information, your name, your date of birth, your social security number. And again, they've X'd out because of confidentiality. So if someone else gets a hold of this report other than you, they don't have your full social security number. And then they also put on there your current address. Next slide here. Many of them give you a summary of what's on your credit report. So you can see here, this person has 5 different mortgage loans showing up on their report. There's 14 installment loans. Now, installment means it's a bank loan or a credit union loan that has a set number of payments or installments. And then revolving would be credit cards. Other could be anything. It could be oh my gosh, could be a car loan. It could be some other kind of financing. And it tells you how many accounts are currently open, how many have been closed. That's a good point. I want to point out there's a misconception out there that when I pay off my credit card or I pay off my car loan, it disappears off my credit report. That is not true. The regulations are, it's supposed to be on there for 7 years from the date of last activity. So that more likely means the last time you made a payment. So if you paid off your card today, expect that that'll still be on your credit report for 7 more years. And if you paid on time, hey, that's great. Let it stay on there for 20 years if it will, because things don't drop off like they're supposed to. But if you have something that showed, oh, I missed a payment or two, you want to watch for that and make sure those things do fall off the credit report. And if you get a copy of your report, it comes with a customer service number. So if you see something on there that shouldn't be, call them up. They're glad to talk to you. It's part of their job is to make sure your credit report is accurate. Dispute it. Tell them it's out of date or it's not accurate, and they'll check it out. And if they find out, oh, Rodney, you're right, they'll have that removed and then send you a corrected copy so you can see what's happened. So no one else checks your credit report for accuracy. And so that is one of the reasons why annualcreditreport.com is there, is because I think the estimate is 25% of the credit bureaus reports have errors. So that gives us the opportunity for ourselves to go in and look at that report and make sure, is it accurate? And if it's not, I can take steps to get that corrected. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later too. Okay. The next slide. Again, it just shows you part of that summary, what accounts you have open. Is it have a balance or is it zero? Maybe you have a credit card, you pay it off each month. So when it gets updated, it shows a zero balance and shows paid as agreed. Each creditor then is going to have its own little section. And so that's where you really get the details about each account. So like, for instance, the Citibank account, it shows you they opened this in 1998. Individual account means it's just in their name. There's no other joint user on the account. It tells you what the credit limit is. Now this one's closed and they report that if you look at the bottom of the screen, account closed by consumer. So that means this person called in and said, we're done, please close the account. If the credit card had closed it, it would say account closed by grantor, the bank itself. Okay. And then the next slide is the inquiries. So again, they put a 2-year history on here. Who you allowed to look at your credit. So usually it means you're shopping for credit. Now, it's not up here, but I will point out there is a 5th section to the credit report if you ask to look at it yourself. Oh, and I want to point out, you as a consumer can look at your credit report every day if you want. That does not affect your credit score. That is another misconception out there. If I look at it too many times, it hurts your score. That's not true. You have a right to look at your information as often as you want to, and that will not affect your credit rating at all. But what I was going to say is, if you ask to look at your own credit report, you'll get a 5th section of the report that the lenders do not see. And it is another list of inquiries. And it's a list of all the creditors the credit bureaus have sold your name to, so you could get those offers in the mail saying, hey, you've been pre-approved to get this offer. Okay, that means you have the credit card, or you've been approved for it, but you've been approved to get the mailing is basically what it says. And they're hoping you will fill out the application and send it in, and then they can actually pull your full credit report. All they have at that point is just your name and address. Just a little more unuseful or useless information. Many years ago, would you like to guess who the #1 customer of the postal office was? Postal service. It was Capital One credit card. And they were the #1 customer because they sent the most mail out to consumers each year. All those credit card offers. I'm not dogging Capital One, but could you imagine how much you would have to mail a year to become the #1 customer of the United States Postal Service? So if you pull your own credit report and it shows you who's been pulling or getting your address, you're probably going to see Capital One on there, among other creditors, of course. Now, let's say you're getting all that stuff in the mail and you're thinking, oh my gosh, it's too much. You can actually stop that. If you open up one of those pieces of mail, look at the fine print, and there is an opt-out number they have to give you that if you call that number, and it's, I'm sorry, automated, but it will tell all 3 credit bureaus not to sell your information for 2 years. Doesn't hurt your credit. It just means you don't get all that stuff in the mail. Is it going to stop everything? No, but it can help reduce what you're getting in the mail. Now, after 2 years, and I've done this before, I wanted to try it out myself. So I called in, gave them my name. Probably within 45 days, I could see a big reduction in solicitations I was getting in the mail. Boy, could I tell you when that 2 years expired. All that stuff started coming in again. And so you can either call back in and get your name on there for another 2 years, or they did have an option to have your name removed permanently, but they would send you something that you would have to have notarized and signed and sent back in. So, so if you would try that out, it doesn't hurt your credit. Give it a try. Just means maybe some less mail for you. Okay. All right. So we've had some credit score questions. So let's talk about credit scores. Now, there's a lot of different scores there. I have people come in and they'll say, or they'll call me and say, Ronnie, my credit score is 1,000 points or 900. Well, the credit scoring system the banks normally use is between 300 and 850. And that score, basically, it's a grade. So like A, B, C, D, and F. So the higher the score, the better you look. Oh, and I see a question. Can you get rid of a hard credit inquiry? You know what? I don't know if I've ever had that question. That's a good one. But I'm going to say normally not, unless it was fraud. Then you would want to contact that creditor and dispute that inquiry and see if they'll have it removed. But if it's actually something you've instigated, then it's probably it needs to stay there for 2 years. Oh, what falls off in 7 years? Negative information. Well, positive information too. So it's 7 years from the date of last activity. So if I was past due on a credit card, let's say, and I bring it current, my credit report will show it's current. But for the next 7 years, if that past due payment had shown up, that will still be on my credit report. So that will affect my score until that disappears. Now, the older it gets, the better it looks also. Court actions come off in 7 years. Hard inquiries do drop off after 2 years. Yes, that'd be correct. Right. Now, there might be some things that stay on there more than 7 years. Chapter 7 bankruptcy is on there for 10 years. If you have a federal debt, it could be a student loan, IRS, it may linger a little longer. But normally if it's a debt, medical bill, and there's been no activity for 7 years, that would come off. And again, does it automatically come off? No, not necessarily. That's why you want to pull that credit report. And if you find something that's out of date, you would contact the credit bureau and ask them to check that out and have it removed. Okay, and that's part of their job. And that didn't cost you anything. There are companies out there that says, hey, we'll fix your credit report for a fee. A lot of times they're doing the same thing you could do at no cost. They're just doing the phone calls or writing the letter that you could do. Yeah. And be careful. Some say they can remove things that they can't really. Like for instance, I had someone I spoke to, they filed bankruptcy a couple of years ago. And remember, it's on there for 10 years. Got a hold of this company and they said, oh, we've got ties to the credit bureau. We have legal staff. We're going to get that removed for you. And they're like, well, that's great. That's great. So they came up with a lot of money to pay this company. And the company said, it's all taken care of. And about a year later, this family's car just died. They had to go get a replacement. So they went to the local bank thinking, hey, our credit should be spotless. This shouldn't be a problem. Well, they went in to apply for the credit. The credit report came up and there's the bankruptcy. And of course, they're flabbergasted. They thought, well, that should not be there. So they tried to contact the company back. Numbers disconnected. The $1,300 they sent in was gone. There was just no way to get back any of their money. So that's why I tell folks, be very careful. Ask a lot of questions. And if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. It probably is. So be careful. Okay. I hope that helped answer your questions. If not, please ask again. Now, if you pull your credit score, and this would apply for like Credit Karma and Credit Sesame, when they give you a score, usually they give you reasons why the score was not higher. So I encourage people, take a look at those reason codes. And they'll spell out, maybe there was negative information in the credit report. Maybe there was too many inquiries. Maybe the debt was too high, your debt to income ratio. So those should all be spelled out. So when you're looking at what things should you be working on to help improve your score, that will help lead you down some ideas. Here's what I need to do first. Those are the biggest factors. Okay? And if you're wondering what things affects your score, here they are. There's only 5 things. 35%, the biggest part of it is your pay history. Do you pay your bills on time? So that's critical. Make sure it's paid by the due date. Be careful. Some credit cards, mortgages, car loans, they give you a grace period. Oh, you're due on the 1st, but you're not having to pay until the 15th, or else you get a late fee by then. Just know that if it's due on the 1st, doesn't matter if there's a grace period. If you pay on the 5th, the 10th, it's still late on their books. Now, for a late payment to show on the credit report, it does have to be 30 days behind. So being 10 days, 15 days past due should not affect your report at all. But it does stay on record at that institution. 30% is based on how much you owe. And so creditors call this utilization. And that's where they'll look at what is the balance on your credit cards, for instance, versus the limit on your card. So I mentioned earlier, it's a game. So on one side of the fence, the credit card company is saying, here's a credit card, please use it. You can spend up to the max on the credit limit, let's say $1,000. But as long as you pay on time and you make your payments on time, you make your regular payments, the bank is happy. They love you. The credit scoring system, though, says, yes, make your payments on time. That's a big chunk of your score. But under amount owed, you don't want to owe more than 30% of the limit. So if you have $1,000 limit on your credit card, you really don't want that balance to ever be more than $300. You could be paying beautifully. You could be paying extra every month. But if you owe more than 30%, that scoring system could be looking at you as that you're overextended. And that could be causing you to lose points on your credit score. So take a look at that. And I'm sorry, I always got stories. And I think I have time for one more story here. I had a gentleman who's wanting to buy a house, contacted us, not very happy because there was a house that he had fell in love with. That was the house for him. He waited for it to come on sale, went to the bank and got denied. And so he's on the phone and he's like, Rodney, I just don't understand. He said, I pay no, I got credit cards. I pay them on time every month. I pay extra. I don't understand why the bank would deny this. And so we started looking at his situation. And then I asked him, well, what do you owe on the credit cards? And come to find out the balances were about 90% of what the limits were on each card. And so at that time, we were estimating he was probably losing 75, 80 points off his score. And so unfortunately, he was asking, well, how can I get the score to go back up? And you got to pay down the debt, and that takes time. So I'm assuming he was not able to get the house that he was looking for because of his debt load. So 30% of your score is based on how much you owe. So getting those debts down helps your score. Length of credit is 15%. So that's where they're looking at how long have you had your open credit or your credit open. So that's why you hear folks say, if you've had an account open, let's say for 10 years, and you're ready to go buy a house or a car, you probably don't want to close that account yet, because that's helping to show you've had credit open for a long time. If you were to close that, it's no longer factored in as part of your score. That could cause your score to, at least temporarily, go down. And I've seen situations where someone had done that while they're trying to borrow money for something and get denied because the score dropped enough to where they didn't qualify anymore with that lender. So I tell folks, if you're gonna be using your credit anytime soon, don't change anything unless that particular bank or credit union says that would be a good idea to do. Otherwise, leave well enough alone for right now. And after you get the house or the car, then close that account if you want to. 10% is new inquiries or new credit. That's where they're looking at the inquiries. How often are you having someone pull that credit report? So be careful with that. Again, no more than 4 or 5 people a year should you give permission to look at that credit report. Okay. And then finally, types of credit. So they're looking at, have you had experience with different types of credit? So you could have too much of a good thing. Having like 17 credit cards and no other credit type doesn't look as good as someone who has maybe 1 credit card and a car loan or a student loan or a bank loan. They like to see a good mix. And that's a small percentage of your score, but it's something they look at. Now, guess what's not here that people assume that the credit report's looking at? Your income. Your income does not get reported normally to the credit bureau. So it's not factored in. Your length of residence is not part of your score. Those are factors that the bank itself could be looking at also in addition to your score. So, but your score doesn't include length of history of address or employment, does not include income either. So a lot of people think it does, but it doesn't. Okay. The next slide here, again, these are the 3 credit reporting agencies, the major ones in the country. You're welcome to their address. Now, if you go directly to their site, they're going to charge you for your credit report. You have to go to annualcreditreport.com to get the free ones. But if you want additional copies, this could be a location to go to. I mentioned your FICO score, Fair Isaac. They have their own company website you can go to, myfico.com. You will pay for the score there also. And that may not be the score the bank pulls up either, because each bank can say, hey, when you pull the score for us, we want to focus more on this or that. So that score could be a little different even from what you pull up from myfico.com. Okay. Again, but it can be a good tool to work from. Okay. So what do we do if we pull our report and we find some things that are wrong? What do we do? First thing I would do is contact the credit reporting agency that you got the report from. Again, they'll have contact information on that report. Contact them, let them know what's wrong. And don't get the report and wait 6 months or a year. Try to do that within 30 days, because it could get so old that they may say, oh, you need a more up-to-date report for us to look at this. So pull the report, review it. If you find some errors, that's when I would be contacting them right away. And again, it comes with a toll-free number and a website. Usually you can go to dispute those items. Keep a record of what you're doing. Okay. You can contact the creditor also. So you can start on both ends. You can contact the credit bureau. And what they do is then they would reach out to the creditor and they'll ask them to respond back. Is this accurate information or not? You'll probably get a response back within 45 or 60 days. They have to give the creditor time to respond back. But you can also contact the creditor yourself and ask them to correct what they're reporting. You could write a dispute letter. I would say before you write a letter, talk to the credit bureau first. It might be something simple enough that they can correct verbally over the phone. For instance, I pulled up a credit report of myself one time. There was an address I never lived at on there. And it doesn't affect your score, but I didn't want that on there. So I called, it was Experian, called them up. I said, I pulled up my report here. There's an address I've never lived at. And I could hear the lady in the background typing on a keyboard. And by the end of the conversation, she said, Ronnie, I've got it removed. And I received something in the mail in a couple of weeks to show what they corrected on my report. So if you can do it verbally without writing anything, that's fantastic. You may need to write them a letter and let them explain to you what they need in that letter so you can send that to them and have them look at that. Okay. I also put on here a credit freeze, especially if you are a victim of identity theft or you're worried someone's got your information. You could contact all 3 credit bureaus and ask them to freeze your credit report. That means no one can look at it. If someone applies for credit, they just won't be able to get your credit report. Now, you can also put a statement on your credit report that says, hey, it's a fraud alert. And it says, hey, I think someone's got my credit information. Please call me before you approve any credit. Is that guaranteed to make them call you? No. So you still want to watch the report. But if you want to go one step further, credit freezing it doesn't hurt your credit. It just means no one can look at it without you unfreezing it first. So it's a little extra work, but it can be sure worth the extra time. Okay. All right. And so maybe you're wanting to find ways to improve your score overall. Again, those things that we looked at earlier, if you have a debt, pay it on time. 35% of your score is based on that. If it's a past due account, you want to make arrangements to get the account current as soon as possible or pay it off. If you bring it current, within next 30 or 45 days, that credit bureau should be updated that you're up to date. But again, the past due payments will be on there too. So it just takes time for that to improve. Or if you pay it off, you want to check your report later and make sure they do report it paid in full. You want to check your credit report yearly. Again, now I've shown you how you can do that for free every year, and it didn't hurt your credit at all. So take advantage of that. Again, be careful, don't apply for too much credit. I think I have time for one more story. So I was teaching a class for some K-State research and extension agents. And one of the agents was in Manhattan. And she dealt with a lot of K-State students. Now, back in the day, when I went to college, when you enrolled, there were credit card offers everywhere. They were right there in the enrollment area. So you got enrolled, and then as you were leaving the building, there were people there, oh, here's a free t-shirt or something. Here, apply for this credit card. And so this agent had two students that had come to her with some credit problems. They had a contest, and their contest was they were going to see who could have the most open credit cards by the end of the school year. So every time they got an application, they would fill that out to apply for a credit card. Well, winter break came around, and so they went home, and one of them, his car died, needed some repair work. Well, they knew the local banker. So they thought, well, we'll just go in. They know us, only need a little bit of money. I'll borrow some money, fix the car so I can get back to school when school starts back in January. So they walked in, the banker said, hey, how are you doing? How's school? And he explained, well, my car broke down. I need to borrow some money. And the banker is like, not a problem. Come on in. I still got to pull a credit report. And while I'm doing that, you can fill out this credit application. You know, we still got to go through all the steps. So he's in there filling out this application, and the banker comes in and he's like, you need to stop. I can't give you the loan. And he's like, oh my goodness, well, why not? And the reason was he had 17 open credit cards at that point. And so he had too much new credit. And the lender was saying, you know, you could go out tomorrow, charge up all these cards, and you can't afford my payment to help fix your car. So he got the loan, but he had to close all those credit cards first before the bank would let him borrow money from them. So, so again, sorry for the story, but that to me was always been interesting. You can have too much of a good thing, so be careful on that. And now this does not go in your credit report, but it is a good idea to establish a bank account somewhere, a bank or credit union, a savings or checking account. Because if you're applying for a loan, a lot of times they'll ask you, do you bank anywhere? And if you say yes, to them, that is helping to show some stability and establishment. And also you're helping build credit with that local institution. So that can definitely help you down the road when you want to borrow money. Okay. And I was going to ask this at the beginning. This will be my last quiz question for the day. Do you have an idea who has the right to look at your credit reports? Now, we've talked about banks, credit unions, of course, but can you think of anyone else who might be wanting or has permission to pull your credit report? And you put that in the chat if you want. Okay. Oh, I see the message. You are right. They do not allow credit card companies on campus. That is illegal. So that happened many years ago. So thank you for the reminder on that for the group. You bet. Employers. Yes, some employers will pull your credit report as part of the process of whether or not they're going to hire you. Not every employer does, but some do. So like every job I've had out of college, all of them have pulled my credit report because I'm dealing with someone else's money. They want to make sure I'm handling my money correctly first. I see this a lot with anyone handling money, or even the military, someone trying to get a security clearance. They will check their credit report to make sure there's no concerns there. If you're wanting to rent an apartment, many landlords pull credit reports too. And also, the gaming commission, I could see that because you're around a lot of money there. So I could definitely see that. And the last group that will pull your credit report normally would be your insurance companies. So your credit score can affect how much your car insurance or homeowners insurance will cost you. So again, the lower the score, the higher your expenses are. So the credit is critical. It affects a lot of things in our lives. It really does. Okay. Well, my goodness, I think we're doing okay on time. I've got like 5 minutes to 1. Is there any questions, any other questions anyone has about credit or credit reports? Okay. I did want to give you my contact information. So there's my agency's address, our phone number for Salina, and then my email address. So please, if you have other questions, please call. I believe I will be back next Friday at noon for another workshop, Lunch and Learn. And we are going to be talking about budgeting debt and what are some ideas to help settle debt or manage debt. So, so if you'd like that next segment, feel free to contact Elena or the library and let them know you'd like to attend that. So thank you all for letting me present today. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you all very much. Great. Okay. All right. And I don't, for some reason, I think you're talking, Elena, but I'm not hearing anything. So. Okay. All right. Okay. Closing a score could cause a closing account could lower the score, especially if you are closing an account you've had open for a long time. Because remember, 10% of your score is based on length of credit history. So by closing that could at least temporarily cause your score to lower. So that's where I tell folks, if you're thinking about using your credit to buy a house or a car, or even a credit card, you don't want to close anything until after you get your credit, because it could affect that score negatively. Yeah. But after you get your credit, like your house or car, and you want to close it, then I would close it at that point. So, yeah, great question. I hope that helped. Good deal.
Thank you.
Well, Elena, thank you.
Oh, you heard me.
You bet.
I actually have a last question. Do you all remember the story when Experian lowered people's credit score by 25 points? That happened last spring, and there was a class action settlement or something. So if something like that happens, what can consumers do other than suing the credit bureau?
Yeah, you know, you could go back if someone got denied because of that. they could maybe go back to the lender and say, can you please reevaluate this? Because they're probably aware of that situation by that time. I just saw an article about that here not too long ago. So just making sure the credit report's accurate. I'm not aware of all the details there, but I had been aware of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Good question.
Well, thank you very much, and I hope nobody suffered because of that.
Yes, yes. So, all right. Well, Elena, do you need anything from me?
I think you've been very helpful today, and we will see you next week. And I have some of the emails that people emailed me here in the chat. And if we need any need to answer to any questions, everybody can send you a question directly or to my email address here at the library. I'm typing it up right now. So here it is. And you can ask me a question and I can give it to Rodney, or you can ask him directly. Here's his information on the screen. So please contact us if you have any questions. And like I said before, this program will be recorded and uploaded onto our website under online programs. Please keep an eye on our calendar. And at the beginning of this chat, I gave everybody the name of the website and the link to the posting where the video will be. So please take advantage of that. You can review this presentation again and again. Thank you very much, Rodney, for this wonderful presentation. I'm sure everybody enjoyed it. And everybody have a great day. Thank you again.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.